first thing I love, also all this quiet and calmness, is something that you will probably notice right away when you come to Japan. It is the quiet in everything. Whenever you enter a public space, be that like a public place, streets, the public transportation system, anything, you will notice how absolutely quiet everybody is. Like this. It is really amazing to hear, or more like actually not hear anything, especially if you're considering that right now I'm in Tokyo, which is with about 38 million people, the biggest city on earth, and still the metro is so quiet that you can actually take a nap after a long day's work, and no one will either steal your stuff nor wake you up with their loud voices when they're talking on the phone or whatever, because nobody does that. This is also true for huge crossings, like for example the Shibuya crossing. If you imagine that there are up to 15,000 people crossing every like 2 minutes when the traffic light is going green, if you listen closely, you will see that, or actually hear, that it's still very, very quiet. I mean, obviously you will hear the cars driving by and some very, very quiet chit-chat, but if you think about how many people are on this crossing in this very moment, I find it just mind-boggling how quiet they are. Additionally, what I really found interesting is how quiet the construction sites are. When I'm close to a construction site in Austria, it's always very loud. So you can hear it from almost miles away that there is some kind of construction going on. Here in Japan, however, you have sometimes construction work at night where everybody is sleeping and still you do not hear a sound, which is absolutely fascinating. Whenever you come to Japan yourselves, just enjoy the quiet, try to relax in the metro or the train or wherever you're going. Make no mistake though, the Japanese can also be very loud in certain situations. For example, when they're celebrating, they do no longer care about being absolutely quiet. Instead, they're just enjoying their lives. Same goes for karaoke, when they're just singing at their heart's content and enjoying to be just as noisy as everybody else is in the world, just not in public spaces and within the right settings. Thing number 2 I completely love about Japan is the convenience in literally everything. For example, is there anything you miss, anything you need right now, any sanitary products, maybe a little midnight snack, maybe a can of beer, because right now you just want a can of beer, no matter what day or time it is. Especially in bigger cities, chances are that the next konbini, which is the short version for convenience store, is not too far away. There you can get your necessary things, like I said, maybe some sanitary product. But the greatest thing about the convenience store is not only that they have a huge variety of products, but they're usually open 24/7, and if I say 24/7, I mean 24/7, from Monday through Sunday, which brings me right to the next thing that I love about Japan, which is generally opening hours. I already mentioned that many konbinis and also other stores are open for 24/7, but also smaller shops are often open for very long hours. For example, from 9 in the morning to like 9, 10, 11 in the evening. So that means, especially in bigger cities, no matter what the time is, no matter what day it is, you can always get everything right away, maybe within a few minutes time, where you need to walk to the next konbini or grocery store and get everything you need. For me it's really cool because over are the times where I had to plan ahead for holidays, Sundays, or also Saturdays where the stores would close way earlier, not at all opening on Sundays and holidays. This is no longer an issue because all the konbinis are largely open 24/7, and whatever I need, I don't need to plan, I just go there and get it. Another thing you can always get like right away if you, for example, want a drink, like let's say some cold water. Chido Hanbaiki are everywhere. That means you don't even have to go into a store. Instead, you just go to Chido Hanbaiki, which is basically a vending machine, and get your bottle of water, be it like normal water, maybe you want some isotonic water, maybe you want some apple juice, some cold coffee, whatever. Sometimes you also find Chido Hanbaiki that don't only sell cold drinks, but also like hot drinks, for example hot coffee or hot tea. Then you can also find Chido Hanbaiki where you can buy food, for example, you know, some ramen from the Chido Hanbaiki, some even offer like pizza. And personally, I never really paid any heed to the Chido Hanbaiki. I mean, of course I was like seeing them along the street, but I was not really paying them any heed until one day I was walking through Tokyo with like 35 degrees Celsius, the sun burning down on me, you know, around me just asphalt and concrete, which made it even hotter than probably just the 35 degrees. And unfortunately I had forgotten my water bottle back in my hostel. So I was like really thirsty, completely on the verge of dehydrating because it was just so hot. Fortunately there were lots of Cheetah Hambaiki, so I just went up to the next one and bought myself the really needed bottle of water. So this definitely came in very handy, as well as like all the other stores that are open so long, and even everything else is just convenient because whenever you buy something, for example in a konbini, let's say you buy some sushi, chances are you will also get some ohashi, which are the chopsticks, so you can easily just eat them anywhere and don't even have to worry about cutlery and just tuck in wherever you find a place to sit down. Thing number 3 I totally love are matsuris. I have only been to 2 so far, and 2 that could not be more different really, but still I would like to talk about them because I just love the vibe, the feeling. What is a matsuri actually? Well, basically a matsuri is a kind of festival, but they vary greatly according to one, where they're held, what season it is, what purpose they are serving, and so on and so forth. So you have like the winter festivals, and you have like autumn festivals, and you have like festivals for some deities. So there is a huge variety of matsuris. I had the pleasure of joining a very small one in Sumida during my first week in Japan, where seemingly every neighborhood in the closer vicinity was celebrating their own little matsuri with traditional music and festivities. This matsuri was meant to invite the deity of this neighborhood into a portable shrine, and this deity is then being carried in this portable shrine through the neighborhood so that the deity could see what was going on and at the same time bless the area and people living in this neighborhood. The procession took some hours in scorching heat, but everybody enjoyed the celebration of coming together and showing the deity around the neighborhood. In the evening there was even more music and dancing of traditional Japanese dances, which was really great fun. A friend of mine and I were even asked to go upstage and dance with everybody and enjoy a great evening. The second matsuri I went to was the Kawagoe Matsuri, the autumn festival in Kawagoe, which is located in Saitama Prefecture, not too far from Tokyo, depending of course where you stay, and it's famous for its extraordinary architecture. This matsuri was completely different than the one in Sumida, especially for example in terms of scale. While in Sumida there were like maybe 5 or 6 little stalls, here I have no idea how many stalls there were. I feel like in every street and every side street and every little alleyway there was stalls upon stalls upon stalls that offered like tons of different kinds of food, tons of little souvenirs, tons of games also, like you will only find on matsuris. Moreover, there were multiple stages where different groups performed different like dances and music, and on top of that there were also like stages and wheels that were being dragged through the streets while the performers showed off what they could do on these portable stages that were even able to rotate around so that everybody could see the front and back of these portable stages, which was just mind-blowing if you ask me, and it was definitely so worth going. So if you're ever in Japan during the time of the Kawagoe Matsuri, you should definitely pay a visit if you can make the time. Thing number 4 I totally love about Japan is how mindful everybody is without actually being imposing. For example, I was once walking to a park that I was trying to find. I had no idea where to go, so I needed to frequently check my phone. And when I was waiting at a red traffic light, I of course, stopped to wait until it turned green, and in the meantime I tried to look up maps and see where exactly I needed to go next. I completely missed that the light had turned green, and all of a sudden I heard somebody honk. Very, very quietly, of course, as we were in Japan. And I realized that the bus driver, who wanted to kind of take a turn at this crossing and actually waited for me to cross was not in fact like just going like people would do in Austria. They'd be like seeing that I'm not walking right away when everything turns green and they would just drive by. No, this guy stopped the bus, was like I said very quietly honking, so making me aware that I could actually go, which obviously I did after thanking him, and only then would he go on his like route. This is also a general feeling that I actually get whenever I'm crossing the streets here, because like in Austria sometimes people drive very very dangerously where you just like, you know, a few centimeters away from the driving vehicle. Here I feel like show the slightest hint that you would like to cross the street, people will immediately jump on their brakes and make sure that you can cross the street safely before they continue driving. So actually in Japan I would have no worries letting little children like go to school, for example, on their own, whereas in Austria that would definitely be a really really dangerous adventure. And the last thing that also comes to mind in terms of mindfulness, I already mentioned at the convenience, because very often you will just get some little extras that you might need, like for example a little towel to wipe your hands and maybe some chopsticks so that you can easily eat your sushi, which is something that I really like. And last but not least, oh my goodness, I love the gardens here. Have you ever been to a Japanese garden? If you haven't, you definitely have to go. First of all, I really like how they are always green. That may sound a little weird now coming from Europe, for example, where most of the parks are green, but I figured that here in Tokyo often parks are like alleyway of trees that are most of the time obviously green, but the rest is all covered in tiles, stone, so there is hardly any greenery. In Japanese gardens, however, I feel that there is most of the time a lot of greenery, especially grass, except for maybe the Zen gardens, but I'm just talking like the classical Japanese gardens. And so like I said, I really love all the greenery that's going on, like the grass, the bushes, the trees, and everything is so meticulously taken care of so that, you know, the grass is always like perfectly short, perfectly taken care of. And often they also combine it with nicely placed stones, stone lanterns, little bridges, or of course ponds, a little little rivers, or maybe even a tiny waterfall. And even though I enjoy European Baroque parks, where I like all the symmetry and all, you know, the perfection, what I feel is when people are like in the Baroque garden, it often feels like they're kind of disturbing the harmony, because all of a sudden, you know, everything is not perfectly symmetrical anymore. In a Japanese garden, however, since there is nothing really like symmetrical, but everything seems to be in kind of a flow, because like there is little turns everywhere, every now and then, you know, so many different elements, I feel like every visitor, unless of course it's completely overcrowded, but usually every visitor feels like a temporary part of this park, which I find very interesting as a concept or idea to really think also about like the visitors when designing the garden. Moreover, as I mentioned, the gardens usually lack strict straight lines as you would have, for example, in a Baroque garden. So everything seems to kind of, you know, flow, and somehow I feel like wherever you go, you always find something new. Maybe you find a new little pathway that you can go along that you've never tried out. Maybe you will find a new perspective of a specially formed lantern or something. And it's also interesting how every perspective just changes with every step you take. My personal highlights of Japanese gardens is if they have a waterfall, the higher the better. For example, the greatest one I feel I saw in Himeji so far. And these little waterfalls can obviously vary from, you know, a few centimeters where you just hear a little bit of water splashing to like, you know, 2 meters, for example, height, which is very interesting to hear and see. And sometimes the higher the waterfall, you can also sometimes really believe that you're standing like, you know, in the midst of nature, and you could actually for a moment or two completely forget that you are actually inside one of the biggest cities on earth. So if you ever get a chance to see a Japanese garden, I would definitely go check it out, if it's only for a few minutes. Well, that's it for my top 5 things that so far I like best in Japan. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have an epic day. If you have any questions, let me know down below in the comments, and see you in the next video. Bye bye!